You're watching a BR Proud presentation, a candid conversation on race relations.
Joining me now to dissect some of these issues, we have State Representative Ted James, who represents a portion of the Baton Rouge area. We also have the newly appointed Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the East Baton Rouge Parish Public Defender's Office, Ms. Elena Booth. So I really want to start by asking you both, what is justice to you? What does it mean? And do you see it being carried out equally in our community? And Representative James, I'll start with you.
I'll say justice to me is when the laws are applied equally, no matter your zip code, no matter your race, no matter your age, no matter who you love, no matter who you're married to, no matter what mistake you may have been accused of. I think that we would not be having this conversation if justice was evenly applied.
I refuse to call it the criminal justice system because I don't believe there's much justice that exists right now in our system that exists today. But when people come to me through the criminal legal system, some of them are in their lowest points of life. And the question is, how are we addressing that? How are we addressing mental health? How are we addressing drug rehab centers? How are we addressing all of these different issues? I am a lawyer. I am extremely trained in the courtroom. However, I am not trained to be a social worker. And this whole system of defund the police, it's not because we hate the police. I believe great police officers exist. I am not that person that's stating that. But do we need to look at how we're funding the police versus how we're funding mental health? Yes. Do we need to look at how we're funding drug rehab centers? Yes. Do we need to look at how are we funding different resources that the community can use?
I've never seen a more racist document than the one you brought, because we don't feel that way here.
That was Representative Dodie Horton of Houghton saying that language in a piece of legislation recently this year to study police reform in the wake of George Floyd's death was offensive, and that she's, quote, never seen a more racist document than the one that you've brought. And the you that she's referring to is, of course, State Representative Ted James, who's back now with the panelist Elena Booth as well. Representative James, the legislation was passed, but only after some of the terminology was changed to make people a little bit more comfortable with it. You said that you were fine with that because it meant that the legislation was moving forward and the overall goal to study this was still moving forward. I just want you to talk a little bit about that.
Look, I have matured a lot in my legislative career because of how important this issue is. I decided to focus more on the therefore be it resolved as opposed to the whereas. And in the whereas, Republicans didn't want to vote on a piece of legislation that stated that there's an issue in this country with white police officers killing black and brown people.
I don't mean to cut you off, but why do you think that is?
Because, again, they don't want to admit that there's an issue, right? And it's not happening in their community. I guarantee you, if black police officers were out there killing white teenagers, we wouldn't be having this discussion because laws would be changed. Well, you know what? We wouldn't have to change laws because prosecutors would prosecute them. They will go to trial, they will get convicted, and they will be jailed.
It just kind of blows my mind about how much protection they have versus what my clients have, right? My clients sit in jail, and you arrest them first, and then you go figure out what happened. That's exactly what happens with my clients. You then investigate, then you run the fingerprints, then you do everything that is necessary, allegedly, to convict them. But with police officers, you give them so much protection where they get to sit at home with their families for a few years before you even bring charges to a grand jury. I
think one of you mentioned it earlier in this conversation. This does not make you anti-police. You're pro-good officers.
Yeah, and the thing is, if people understood how, she talked about this benefit of the doubt. Black folks, we don't get that benefit of the doubt. We give officers the benefit of the doubt. When I spoke about my experience with law enforcement on the House floor and talked about the fact that I was once pepper sprayed, some of my colleagues asked, well, what did you do? And when I talked about the experience at my barbershop, some of them said, did something really not happen? Like, the benefit of the doubt that is, we just give it blanket to all police officers, no matter what, no matter the video, no matter the footage, no matter the fact that they have purposefully turned off body camera footage. We still give folks the benefit of the doubt. And it is extremely problematic. But if the general public really could sit in on some of these hearings and listen to how the law not protects, it shields police officers. Under the law and under civil service agreements, a police officer, I can go out there and shoot and kill somebody and tell my chief that I'm not talking to him for 30 days until I go and find a lawyer. There's a lawyer on every corner in Baton Rouge. It don't take you 30 days to get a lawyer. In addition to the 30 days, I can go in and view my body camera footage, dash cam footage, body camera footage of any other officer that was there before I have to speak to my chief. That is problematic. And if people knew and understood that, they would have issues.
I want to ask you both, how do we address the systemic racism that exists in our institutions in terms of policing?
Number one, we have to admit that we have them, right? We have people that still won't admit that we have a problem with policing. We have a problem with racism in the institution of policing. If we go back to the history of policing, it was founded on racism, right? To not admit that we have issues when Black and brown bodies are falling and officers are moving without consequence is problematic. And you mentioned it perfectly. Even in the House floor this week, anytime we have a discussion about police officers, it's almost like you have to go down there and give a disclaimer. The police are important. Like, I have family members that are police officers. I have fraternity brothers who are police officers, right? You know, when we reformed teachers, nobody thought that it was a referendum against teachers. You know, when we reform other things, it's not a referendum against the institution. However, we have issues regarding policing. And I'll tell you, the only way that we can really address it is by first admitting that there's an issue. And there's too many people in our community. There are too many people that are elected that won't admit that it is a problem. We spent almost 2 hours debating a bill that will penalize police jurisdictions for defunding police departments when not a single person has moved to defund the police department in the Louisiana, in the whole state of Louisiana.
Elena, I know that the NAACP is also involved in a case recently with a Baton Rouge police sergeant. He is now on administrative leave for making racist and sexist comments to an online forum. We've heard a number of mayoral candidates say that we need to increase police pay, say that training is the solution to eliminating some of these issues. How do you train someone to not go online and spew their racist views under a different pseudonym?
Those officers are a public, public safety issue for the Black and brown community. You know, George Floyd, that police officer, you know, kneeling on his neck and killing that man did not start with the action. It started with a way of thinking, the same way of thinking for Officer Kuhn, the same way of thinking for Officer McKay, you know, and it's countless others. But you all tell me that, oh, well, you know, the Bill of Rights, we can't go back and do anything because it's too late, even when it's proven that it's been a cover up ever since. If you don't think that the way of thinking affects who a police officer pulls over, who they put in handcuffs, who they don't give the benefit of the doubt to, it affects all of that. And officers are given so much discretion. We trust them to know, you know, hey, who to pull over, how to pull them over, how to de-escalate a situation. So if that way of thinking is that the Black and brown community is beneath you in any type of way, you should not be policing the community. You should not be on the police force. You lost your right to be able to wear this badge. 100% completely, no questions asked.